Three, two, one. How everybody doing out there today? On this illustrious day, where we got Honorary Bob Ferretti in the house.
I'm here
to talk about. Got your mic good, Bob? Can you hear Bob?
Pretty
good, everybody. Tiny, how about that? Can you hear him? Testing 1, 2. You there? Sounds good. Can you hear me, Tiny?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, Bob, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear Bob Ferretti?
Are we there?
Yeah, I think you're okay.
All right.
If not, somebody's gonna tell us. So as we always do from hours of 6 to 8 every Sunday, we'd like to welcome you to Northwest Austin Council. Unfortunately, DeAndre and Arnold are not here yet, but DeAndre is coming in from Indiana from an event, and Arnold was tied up with something, so he's on his way. So we're gonna have a full house in a little bit with our special guest, Bob Ferretti, candidate for Cook County State's Attorney. So what we're gonna do at this moment, we're gonna dive right into it, Bob.
All right, I'm ready.
Hey, if anybody you want to start with questions, you want to do a presentation? I think you should do a presentation.
Well,
be the best way to go.
I'm Bob Ferretti, and I'm running for state attorney, as you just said. But I have to tell you, I'm running I'm running as a Republican. I've been endorsed by a variety of Democrats, from Reverend Jackson to Mother Wade, to a whole host of people in the community, and a lot of the Hispanic communities too are coming forward and backing my candidacy, because if they know the Democratic candidate is not the candidate of their choice, especially since she put in a 11-year-old, she convicted him of a murder that the kid did not commit on a coerced false confession. So I say this, I'm running to restore the rule of law, back our victims, and to break this whole cycle of crime and corruption. I am by far a better qualified candidate to occupy that office instead of my opponent. I have been appointed in Cook County, DuPage County, Will County as a special assistant state's attorneys in those counties by both Democrats and Republicans. And at the same time, I've been appointed special assistant state's attorneys attorney generals by our attorney generals, both Democrat and Republican, to represent the people of the state of Illinois in numerous cases. And I say this, my cases have really generated change. I had under Harold Washington, I did have a case, and I wrote a special order, and I believe it's now a general order, stopping chokeholds. One on how detectives take notes during an investigation of a murder, and third, how we transport suspects from a crime scene to the department. So I say this, and my civil cases have also, and I'm a civil rights lawyer. My civil cases have resulted in the Baby Tamia case, which many people may not know, but it changed how we look at human trafficking. We got a baby back from Utah. Changed the adoption laws in Illinois, which ultimately changed the laws across the country on what was happening with black and brown babies being snatched from their mothers under false pretenses and what was happening. I'm proud of that. My record is 8 years as alderman. I brought 8,000 jobs to the historic Black Second Ward when I was the alderman. And we had community benefit agreements, so they'd hire from our community. They trained them as necessary. I was the one who started Operation Safe Passage because of a killing at Crane High School when the attendance went straight down. But at the same time, we flooded the area with social services, which brought crime down in general in the area, and I can do it again. And then I have done a number of aspects when I was alderman, hiring kids, not just a few, but up to 40 kids. And we had a state grant that I found that any alderman should be using during the summer, that we pay them $20 an hour during the week, which is a good chunk of change. So my belief is that you look at the situation. If you have people working 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 5 days a week, you know what? They're too tired to commit crime. And I've helped out a lot of people, served on a lot of boards, and that was a snapshot of what I do and who I am.
All right. A small little history.
That was a small one, yes.
Small.
Yes.
But I want to ask you more about when you were alderman. What was the word again? Because I know it was over by the United Center, right?
The second, no, well, part of it actually started in Bronzeville.
Really?
37th Street. Especially went up the lakefront, McCormick Place, Soldier Field. Then it turned at Jackson, picked up some tall building called, you may call it the Willis Tower, but I still call it the Sears.
Okay, okay.
And I should tell you about that before I finish it off. I would bring about 50 to 60 kids every summer to the top of the Sears Tower to look out from our west and south sides, just to give them an opportunity to see what was great.
Right.
I had Lou Mitchell's would feed them, and it was just a phenomenal experience. And then the ward kept going down all the way the parking lots around the United Center.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't have Greektown either, but it kept going straight out beyond Sacramento.
Okay.
So it was a pretty, when I was first elected, it was 76% African American.
Okay, okay.
I had more housing projects from the CHA than probably any other ward. I'm not sure on that directly, but I had huge numbers. I had more churches, more schools, more senior homes than probably any other alderman had in the city of Chicago.
In the ward.
In the ward.
And the ward was the second.
The second ward. Yeah.
And how long did you
8 years. 4 years under Daley and 4 years under Law.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. So at this time we can go into questions from the audience. If anyone has a question, please raise your hand and I'll let you speak directly to Mr. Bob if you're ready. Anyone?
No.
No.
Good evening, and thank you for being here. My name is Bertha Purnell. I live here in Austin. I would like to know what grassroots organizations have you met with to try to see about working with them after or if you're elected to office?
Well, I've been honored, like I said, Reverend Jackson has endorsed me, but so have a lot of community groups. I think how we bring down crime is by working with the community groups. We need state's attorneys active in the community and in the community groups, not just somebody that shows up and then just gone after that. I'm honored. I feel great to be here on this podcast with everybody from the North and Northwest Austin Council. And I think it's a tough job I think it's the toughest job in the state of Illinois. Given, this year alone, so far, we've had over 2,600 people shot. About 450 of those have been killed. And we have a huge division that deals with civil cases. And at the same time, we have a number of cases that deal with taxes in the property tax division. And so when we hear that we have 700 attorneys, the truth of the matter is they're divided into a number of divisions. So, and they're not all concentrating on crime. And we have an appellate division too. So I home. I was born in Roseland Hospital. I was president of the Historic Pullman Foundation when the fire came, and on my Twitter account there's a testimonial from somebody that said what I did when I was president led to the naming of the national park. So I'm not kidding. We have 150 police departments in the county, so that minimum. I'm going to work with them and the community groups that they're working with and go on and see. I think, campaigning is fun. I'll tell you that right now. We need everybody, but the truth of the matter is the hard work begins if you want to be an effective safety attorney here in this county dealing with the problems we have.
Thank you for that. You said a lot, but I
know
didn't hear the answer to my question in there, but that's okay. I'll continue to check. But the second part of my question is, how would you work with the sheriff's department to try to change that circus going into the courtroom buildings, such as 26 in California?
Well, here's the latest of issues. And I've known Tom Dart. Tom Dart actually, when he was in the House, sponsored a resolution honoring me for the work I've done on the South Side, and specifically in the Pullman area. I have that hanging in my law office, and so I know Tom, and I know the sheriff's people. Since we instituted the Safety Act, we are looking at a variety of different numbers. The chief judge said, well, the failure of people to show up again in return is 12%. The clerk of the court, who her numbers show about 72%. Why is that important in this whole discussion? Because we, the taxpayers of this county, have spent almost $40 million on case management. So as soon as a judge rules, that order almost goes into the system, and it shows if defendants are appearing or not appearing. I'm going to work with the chief judge, Tim Evans, who I know fairly well, and Tom Dart to stop this revolving door. And how, it was never in Alderman's description to want free safe passage for our kids, to bring 8,000 jobs. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to fight for each and every community. I'm going to make sure people are heard. I'm not going to waste any time of dealing with the issues of disinvestment in our communities and how we solve those. And I'm getting a little bit dry, and so I had a bad bout with cancer many years ago. I lost 60 pounds and I put 50 back on, but I have to say that it was all in my jaws and in my tonsil areas, and so sometimes I get dry. And I've been speaking all day on the radio, starting at 6 this morning, 3 different churches and a community event, and making sure we can get things done to talk to people out in the neighborhood today.
Thank you again. You said a lot.
Well, we got.
But if you can have some, first of all, going into Cook County Jail, the disrespect from the sheriffs that you get is one of the issues that I was talking about. Because everybody going into Cook County Jail, but even the ones who committed crime, should be treated with decency. That was why I asked you, how could you work with Dart on it? But again, we'll keep on looking. Thank you.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, before you hang up, I represented 4 different families once. And I'm a civil rights attorney, but I represented the family. They were all Arab, okay? And a Chicago kid he was traveling down Harlem, and hit the car, I believe it was, at 157, on what happened. The disrespect that I saw at that time of some of the people that were, as you go through the court system, and when I say the doors of the court, from some of the folks in the sheriff's office, I spoke to Tom Dart about it. And he said, and this was before I was an alderman, so let's not make any mistake about it. But he did clear it up in that instance to show some respect, because those, obviously they did not like, Middle Eastern people. And I'm willing to fight for the battles that need to be done to have our sheriff's police at not just 26, but all the courtrooms where we have criminal matters, where we have people coming in to say, hey, you got to treat people with respect. I'm 100% behind what you just said.
All right. Does anyone else have anything for candidate Bob Paredes?
Somebody must be out
No.
there. Come on, folks.
Everybody's trying to raise their hand.
Huh?
Don't raise them all at one time. How about you, Walter? Walter said, how are you on the death penalty?
Well, yeah, we're no longer a moratorium state. We are prohibiting that. So that is the law of the land, and that's what it remains. And I see that as what's going to happen. We've done certain things here in this state that we can't go back on. When George Ryan issued the moratorium and Pat Quinn signed the law, none of that's going to change. Doesn't matter how I feel, because maybe I'm getting around the issue. But as a civil rights attorney, you see certain things. Chicago and Cook County have been declared the wrongful conviction capital of the world. And the question gets to be, why is this happening? Well, what has caused this, that we have these wrongful convictions? I represented somebody on one case, and we settled it. He was in for 11 and a half years. We got him $9 million several years ago. I had to sue Governor Rauner on behalf of 20 plus wrongful convicted individuals, because they were not getting their money from the state of Illinois. So all of that impacts on what's happening in terms of wrongful conviction. I'm going to see integrity throughout the process. I think that's very important. And you have to have the same type, and whether it's the police all the way to the state attorney, and going through the process. I have doubts on what's what and how the system allocates personnel, but I want my state's attorney who work in the office that I will be the state's attorney with your help to make sure they understand the concept, the principle of a presumption of innocence. And I want them to be ethical. I want them to be fair. I want them to be hard charging in their cases. But at the same time, I want public defenders, and we don't have enough of them, and private attorneys to be fair, ethical, hard charging, and at the same time creative for their clients. And I see it so so often, in so many cases, oh, we'll just take the money and pay them out. Well, wait a minute, that's not how it works. The individual is the one who's getting the shaft from this whole concept. And we need to shake up the system and make sure both ends are doing the job to make sure that we have fairness and that we have the right judgment in front of the right kind of judges, because I want neutral judges up there who can call balls and strikes, and when necessary, to put it in front of a jury of their peers. And then we can, this wrongful of not only the country but of the world will come to an end. Wrongful conviction.
All right. Anybody else have any comments or questions for Bob? Unless you would like to allude towards any other ideas that you would have.
Well, I'm going to fight for all of our communities. You know, I'm going to fight for the kids, make sure that we can find ways with our criminal justice system to help our juveniles, to make sure that we're out there doing what's necessary, that they have a good education and good jobs, that we clean up. When I was alderman, after being elected here and being sworn before I was sworn in, I had my first of several cleanups, and we did it at California and Madison. And what was important about that is because I believe, just like probably everybody on this podcast, clean communities instill pride. I tried to make sure that we had a boarded up home or building after a while, and it was beyond redemption, we get it torn down. We made sure our alleys were clean. We had lights in the alleys, we had lights on the street. My staff and I walked our ward or drove our ward. Everybody drove it once a month at different times to see if lights are out, shoes are hanging from, and we all know those are gang signs, gang control. The fire hydrants are all in repair. When you see the piece missing, it's because somebody stole the bronze insert up there, the ring, which fetches a few dollars up on the junkyards. But those that they make sure they're disabled, and that's what happens with them. And the fire department has to add more time. We went to every home, and after a child was killed on the west side, just right outside of my ward, and because of a fire, and we knocked on every door to make sure everybody had a smoke detector, and we gave them out to every home that did. You know, I believe that everybody ought to participate in the greatness of this city and in the education of this city and how we do that. I serve on a board that we have 25 scholarships a year. This year we get for 4 years, primarily from kids from west and south side. And this year we're giving out 102. They get it each year, and it's based on merit and it's based on need. But the issue gets to be, and they're in historic black and historic black colleges and universities. Kids need that extra push, and I'm here to make sure whether they're just starting school or all the way up to college, that they get that extra push. And the kids that we give the scholarships to, the 102 this year, they'll receive a phone call once a month, seeing how they're doing in their studies, seeing how they're doing, if they're stumbling a little bit, what they need, what kind of encouragement, what's the problem, that would help them out. And you know what? I have found out some of these kids are so bright, and but they want to learn. And not that college is the end all to be all, because I think some people should be in the trades, and I fought for the trades, and at the same time I fought for nonprofits for our churches, to make sure that they have the, free water at the churches, so, somebody's joining us on, so, and he's right here joining me too, so.
Make sure I got the phone.
Ah.
You got it? I was gonna give it to you.
All right, I think we're all better,
You all in?
except Doc, you can't see her. What happened to you?
Oh, you're gonna be popping in shortly. It is it's switching to better Wi-Fi.
Oh, there you are. Now I have to see it.
Oh.
I'm shooting it in person.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
The one that said, are you going to set up youth programs? We need youth programs.
We sure do. And, you know, a lot of the things that I talked about when I was alderman are not in the alderman description. And I make sure, the things I talk about, when I become state attorney, and I am going to become the state attorney with everybody's help, to get the punch 55. But, I had a number of youth programs from, sports to hiring them. And I mean, when you hire 40 kids, it started off with a few and then it moved to 40 my last few years of being alderman. That is a lot of responsibility, but we made sure that they helped out in the offices, in the ward. I brought in the city hall office. When Reuben Ivy got killed outside of Crane, we brought in a lot of resources, and especially in terms of basketball programs, midnight basketball, things along those lines. Not that, not that that's all the end. That's just the beginning of what we plan on doing. Yes.
I missed a lot. And I
Want me to
introduced
start
myself.
all over? No.
Yeah. So I'm Dr. DeAndre Rudis. You know, I've been doing work with Steve here with Northwest Austin Council since about 2016. I ran for alderman over here in the 37th Ward. Before that was my first introduction to the work that I do now in the community, and I'm actually one of the elected district council persons. So I represent the 15th district.
Yeah.
So still very actively involved in politics and community, do a lot of work. And so what I wanted to say is, so obviously I missed all of what you had to say in the beginning. So for me, I want to get right to the nitty gritty of it all. You know, you're probably the only Republican that folks that are Democratic want to vote for.
Right.
And, but, so I want to know, how come the transition though? Because there was a point where you were a Democrat.
My first vote was I drove all the way from Champaign, to vote in my first election, and that was in 1972 in a primary, Democratic primary, and I made it, then the polls were only open from 6 to 6. Made it at about 5:30, thank God, even though I was speeding, I didn't get stopped. I probably wouldn't have been able to vote, and I voted and in fact, I drove past the firehouse in Roseland, which is boarded up now at 120th State Street. Past my
I grew up on 119th and Stewart.
Oh, wow, okay. I was up and down that whole area. And I say this because at some point, the Democratic Party left me, like it has left many people.
Okay.
And on family values, on their perception on crime, and the failure to lift our community. Often, you know, and I work with Congressman Davis, and we have worked together. In fact, in the past, he's endorsed me for various offices, and I'm proud of that. But I think the Democratic Party, for me, went too far left. We need people in the center.
Yeah.
People say, you know, more center oriented.
Right.
I'll tell you, we looked at running as an independent.
Okay.
But just to get on the ballot.
Yep.
Would be, how about if you have a spare $200,000, you know, and the number of signatures that we need are just works, and many of the folks, the primary happens between the Democrats and the Republicans in, early on, and then it's X number of days after that, that independents can be starting to bring their, collect signatures for an office.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, you can't have somebody, one, who circulated for either one of those.
Mm-hmm.
And then two, you can't have somebody sign a petition for an independent who already signed it for a Republican
Or a Democrat. Damn.
So it gets to be
Okay, yeah. I received that. I was sad, we mentioned you maybe a couple of weeks ago, and they said, and I was like, somebody mentioned you were a Democrat, a Republican. It's like, no, he's a Republican. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, cause I get it, and I understand. I actually voted for you, so I did early vote. I voted for you, and I voted for you off the fact that you are more centrist and moderate. That is not to put down the job that our state's attorney had done and in making the office more progressive. But the reality is, especially for folks in these communities that I now have to serve as a district council person, we're trying to understand how is it that people, especially when they are arrested, it almost as if the system has become a turnstile for them. You know, you see them out and they get arrested and they're out in another hour back in the same location. And then you ask the officers, well, then what happened? And they'll say, well, it's the state's attorney's office. Then you ask the state's attorney, well, what happened? Well, it's the officers. They didn't properly arrest them, or they you know, they went beyond their duty. Yeah, and then you ask the police, hey man, well, where you at, Alderman? Where your role at in this? You know, and everybody's pointing fingers and nothing's getting solved. But on Madison and Pulaski, we still have a open air drug market.
I know.
You know what I mean? So to that though, you know, and honestly for me, so I would, you know, say that I'm independent myself, in that I don't subscribe to the idea that because I'm a black man in Chicago, that I'm supposed to be a Democrat. You know what I mean? I don't subscribe to that at all. You know, and I'm a person over party individual. So you're gonna have to be able to tell me what your platform is, and actually, you know, it will have to look like it's going to benefit the community before I just say, okay, you're the one that I'm going to get behind because, you know, you represent this thing. Which, as I was coming here, I was telling my I think it was somebody, I can't remember exactly who, but I was saying that, you know, the parties are brands now, you know, and just like any business, and when you have a brand, you have to shift. You have to shift the way you're doing things. And so as you're saying that the values no longer speak to you as what Democrats represent now, you can see, you know, in progressivism, there is clearly a change of direction as to who the party wants it to be represented by, you know, and by and large, Black people feel that they aren't the ones that are being as supported as they need to. You know what I mean? And I think that's why we are looking at such an exodus from the party. You know, personally, I believe all Black people should be independent, and people should come earn our vote. But I do get it though. You know what I mean? I get the system, and I understand how it works. But to the point,
you see, to me, the whole system, and I saw it in the city council, my 8 years. They remapped the historic second ward, chopped it up into all these other wards, and put the second ward up north because they thought I was going to move just because they wanted it. Now, and they knew I was being a voice for our people. And when I say our people, the people in the second ward got the shaft, and so did the people in the city of Chicago on the remap.
Right.
I was at a community meeting up north, and Dick Mel was in that group, and he said the biggest mistake he ever made was making sure that I moved up, and because he was chair of the remap. Now I say that we needed one more vote on the remap, and first of all, I was submitting a map that had 35 wards instead of 50. And
it ain't like that.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you right now, we have, you know, New York has more aldermen, but New York's divided a little bit different. So they have 15 LA.
Mhm.
LA is before us in terms of population.
Mhm.
They have 15 already.
Mhm.
Who's behind us in population? Houston.
Mhm.
They have 15 already.
Mhm.
Wow.
You know, and so you know, it's how you govern. We have, and what does, you have to be careful on what your alderman does or doesn't do. Some of them, you know, I don't know, they've given them $1.5 million to spend any way they want,
Mhm.
every year now in their menu.
Mhm.
And the problem with that is, certain areas, if you can't agree with the alderman, you get the shaft.
Mhm.
Or your business community, and you want your street repaved, it may not happen because, somebody over at other ends of the ward can pick up the phone and tell the alderman, hey, we need this.
Yeah.
So,
Especially if the vote's coming from over there.
yeah, absolutely, right. That's why, you know, I proposed a grid system,
Okay.
and, you know, Ron, probably the only thing he ever did that I'll credit him to, because he took my idea and put that in partially.
Okay.
And it could have saved, if you would have fully implemented it, it would have saved the city about $12 million.
Okay.
So, and I, you know, I had, the Ratless, ward. I mean, you know, we just been named that the other.
The Radius City.
The Radius
Yep.
City again,
Mhm.
10-year running.
Mhm.
Nothing to be proud of,
Mhm.
but, in fact, I went to 2 night games at Wrigley Field this year.
Mhm.
And as I'm about a block away, I'm watching all the rats jump around.
Man, listen. Them boys big too.
Yeah, oh, they
Line 'em up for the.
They
Yeah.
big still out there, man.
But I made sure every alley and every corner was baited during the year.
Okay.
Because you can't just, oh, by the way, I live at, Jackson and 2400 West Jackson. I see a rat, well, wait a minute. You know what, you just don't come out to do that, you have to face the area around.
Right.
I mean, it makes no sense in terms of what the city's doing.
Mhm.
I also had somebody who could have come in to reduce, and, you know, this is an aside, reduce that. And, Ron found out, we had him in his office, said, you know what, do not tell Alderman Fioretti that you met with me.
Damn.
But they called me up about an hour after the meeting, but the program was never instituted, you know.
Wow.
I mean, there are things that we should be doing up and down. I'm gonna use the, office of the state attorney really, to be a pulpit to just get out there and make sure we get things in our community that are necessary for our kids. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna fight for everything.
How do you do that? Okay, so one of the things that has changed about the legal system is the Safety Act itself. And so the statistics are starting to come out, and I like to ingest media from all sides. So I don't know what is true about the Safety Act and the result that is brought up. But what I've been seeing is that it has been successful in that obviously folks that cannot afford bail, yeah, so they can't afford bail, has been able to, you know, successfully return home and, you know, wait until their time is called and when they have to go in front of the judge. But I've also seen for those that have committed crimes that are a recipient of no cash bail, they have also gone out to recommit while waiting to go see the judge. And again, depending on where you read at, you know, those statistics are fairly high. So how do you, in the light of the Safety Act, when this is happening, how do you approach that now?
Well, I first of all, the problem with, you know, we're not gonna coddle violent criminals. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
Right.
They're gonna be charged to the max. There was a couple on the Mag Mile Saturday, or right off of the Mag Mile, that came downtown. They got attacked. She was pregnant, lost her baby. They were charged with misdemeanors. Okay? They should have been charged with felony.
She lost a baby.
Yeah, a whole bit. Because of the attack on a public way, bodily harm,
Yeah, for
different
sure.
types of felonies. And that would not happen under, now, when you talk about this whole, cash bail, I'd like to find those that they talked about, because, who did not make, because nonviolent crimes, as a rule, prior to the Safety Act, people did get the revolving door, that may be wrong. As
Right.
long as they didn't have warrants out on them, a serious background. And that's what I object to, under the act. I think, we should have more judicial discretion. They should be able to look at the individual. What kind of crime? Was it a crime of violence or not? Was it, their background? Did they commit it again? Who they committed it against? Will they, could they create harm against the victim or the community? Are they a flight risk? All those factors should go into and allow the judge to have more discretion in this whole, effort that we have out there. Now, you know, we see, the numbers, and I think just before we walked in, the chief judge, he has about 12% of people don't show up, after either their first court appearance or out.
Okay.
But the, clerk of the court, Iris Martinez, who, looks at it, about 72% of people do not show up.
Wait a minute. So he has 12% and she has 72%.
Yeah, now, and I say this, we the people, the taxpayers, spend almost $40 million on case management system. And that, if you're in court today, it's in the file on the case management by the end of the 24 hours. And so those that don't show up, it's recorded. And now, what do? They send a postcard out to the people. You gotta show up at the next time, and they don't show up successively. So I am a little bit dry, so bear with me.
No worries.
You understand?
Yeah.
So I believe Iris Martinez is referenced because we, the taxpayers, spent all that money to upgrade this system to see what the heck's going on each and every court appearance.
Yeah, I mean, that was part of the Safety Act, was that it had to be recorded. So I would hope that the person that sits at the clerk's office would be in charge of numbers and looking at them in that way. In fact, I believe that was the person, because much of the information I get actually comes from X. No matter how much people might hate it, at least you can get both sides of the story, and then you go and make a decision how you want. But I believe I was looking at Clerk Martinez's information to suggest that we may be failing in some places for it. And there was some other information, I can't remember which article or publications put it up, was to the opposite.
I think I may have it in here, but she has, probably not. When you want to find something quick, well, yeah, it just, this may be it. You know, you get these pop-up ads too on the whole thing. For example, the total number of cases during the period Martinez cited was 30,000 higher than those released by Timothy Evans. She wrote a letter to Tony Beckenwell on September 17th, talking about this issue and her analysis of court records to give us a better understanding of whether this system is working or not. Granted, I can't pull up where I need to get to that because the letter is in an article. But the article in the Sun-Times said Martinez said defendants have failed to appear in court for hearings in roughly 67,000 of the 90,000 cases in that year when cash bail was eliminated. So cash bail, you know, if we come up with it, it guarantees that, you know, you're gonna show up for trial too. So we can make a decision on what was made there. And is it working or not? We better sit down with, the guys and gals in the legislature and say, hey, which are the numbers? Timothy Evans and his methodology, or Irene Martinez, and her methodology?
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Someone said, Bob, is there a lot of corruption in city council and Cook County level?
I don't wanna laugh out loud.
No, really? Well, now.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. You know, when I was alderman, and I say they wanted to move me up to the north side, I'll tell the story. A couple of weeks before they put the remap into effect, Danny Solis appeared, I was on at IW Wells and Wells, talking to constituents. And he somehow knew about the meeting, and because we were to do all this, and somebody must have called him on it. And he shows up, and I said, Danny, what are you doing here? And he said, well, you know, we're gonna, the remap, and I'll be my constituents. I said, the remap doesn't go into effect for another 2+ years. So what are we talking about? He said, and then he looks down at his shoes and doesn't want to talk to me. He said, maybe something's gonna happen, and it may happen sooner. No, and it happened within 2 weeks. Now,
I mean, what you looking at those shoes for, man? You got wire down now?
You're
right, I know. Yeah, I know.
You know, because Ed Burke, prior on 3 occasions, came to me during city council meetings, and he would say, if you get me the post office for the tax work, the property tax work, you know, I can split the fee, which would have been, I mean, it would have been millions, but all we could pay as alderman was $99,999.99. So I don't know who was going to get the rest of it. That's 2 of us, so a little bit less than 2 cents less than 200,000. I mean, who got the rest of the millions? You know, so I say that because, you know, 3 times, and every time I said no, we vote on taxes, we vote on property tax increases. It's unethical. And well, we have a statute that says it's okay. Statutes don't make everything fine. And you know, my first year in office,
Also, there was tax appeals are money makers.
well, you know, I do know, again, as I looked at things, what I did as alderman, I think I'd like to do as the state's attorney, to make sure that we have the programs for the kids. And from the young ones, you know, I always found it amazing when I would go to the grade schools and talk to the various students, especially those in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade. What do you want to do? A lot of them wanted to be police officers, firefighters. And I'm like, well, but you hear about 4th grade, I'm going to be a basketball player, football player. And somehow somebody told me it's all about the money. You know, how many make the pros?
Right.
And how long do they last?
Very little, very little.
Yeah.
I want to piggyback off that question because a little more. I was going to piggyback off that. How do you balance? So I know you said you want to make sure that folks are convicted for the crimes, and whatever it is that they do, you know, you're going to make sure that it sticks. So, but how do you balance, especially in light of a progressive movement in which we are trying to change the reality of the legal system because there has been so much, systemic racism that has afflicted, particularly communities of color, right? So how do you balance that? Wanting to make sure that folks are charged appropriately while also making sure that the system still doesn't disproportionately impact people of color.
Well, I had a client recently, who brought to court. He ended up getting into what we call the second chance program.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as he doesn't commit a crime, and there was several felonies, but every time, and he wanted to fight and fight and fight.
Mm.
And under the second chance program, if you follow the rules, your record gets expunged anyway. So I kept saying to him, "Do you really want a jury out there judging you? It's up to you to make a decision."
Mm.
And he made the decision to go with
The jury?
second chance program.
Oh, okay.
So he was let out, and he has nothing on his record today. It was expunged.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that came back is fine.
Okay.
I mean, there's a film that I keep talking about that I want to go home and watch it. When I teach law school every so often,
Okay.
and I watch it every. The last class I had was dealing with landlord-tenant relations,
Mm-hmm.
especially during pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
and everything was chaotic
Mm-hmm.
for everybody on what to pay, whatnot. And it's called The Wrong Man.
Mhm.
It was an Alfred Hitchcock movie.
Okay.
And you know how Alfred Hitchcock would appear in a little scene
Mhm.
on a bus. You almost have to look to see where it is in it.
Mhm.
But this one, he starts off in the beginning.
Mhm.
He says, "This is not my usual film.
Mhm.
It's about somebody that was wrongfully convicted.
Mhm.
An Italian guy in the Bronx
Mhm.
who was played the bass in a nightclub every night." And it was how he was wrongfully convicted, this guy, in a lineup too.
Mhm.
You know, and I've always had problems with lineups and how we determine who's who.
Mm.
You know, the kid that I had, everybody ID'd him in a lineup.
Mhm.
It turns out, you know, somebody had to be in over 6 months later, and he
Okay.
wasn't him.
Wow.
And four confessions,
Damn.
you know. So you have to watch the integrity of the system.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
how you take notes, and you got to instill in your state attorneys on what's happening on that.
Yeah.
And like I said, they got to understand the presumption of innocence
Yeah.
from the get-go.
Yeah.
And if they don't, we're convicting too many.
Yeah. So are you saying that for you, the choice of reform lies with the person? Because in the example you gave, this man said that he would be willing to take the second chance over going to jury. So is that how you see yourself acting in that role, allowing people to be empowered enough to make the decision over their own circumstance? How does that look for you?
I think fully informed people should. I've
Okay.
always informed my clients, even today. Whatever, sometimes, there's reasons in the civil cases, they don't need to follow it, they should get an order of what happens
Mm-hmm.
every day. Is it another status? We have to change a lot about how we administer both our civil system and our criminal justice system. And I plan on making sure that, the victims especially are notified of what happens. And they should be finding out right away, because too often they get shoved to the wayside and don't know what's happening. We have too many cases out there that they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, someone said, is there any way the discovery time could be cut down so it doesn't take sometimes over 3 years to go to trial? Woo-wee.
Well, I have talked to the judge that had the longest pending case. I even talked to him today. Longest pending case is over 5 years. And there were a lot of, my view is, and I, in fact, the same, individual who, we were talking about the take the second chance, sometimes you may want to just say, ready for trial, and we have to go to trial on the matter. The state should be ready immediately, and so should the defense. Now, granted, there are lots of motions, a lot what we can do, but, you know, the problem that we now face when I helped create the system on how detectives take notes is this, the phone.
Mm-hmm.
People are putting it in, and all of a sudden, somebody out there who could be doing something may have talked to somebody else, and that doesn't get over to somebody. So it creates problems in our system.
Mhm.
And we've got to make sure that the defense has all the documents in the room from the department, from the investigators, from the witnesses, as soon as possible, and no screwing around.
Got a question here. What is the state's attorney's budget, and how will it diversify staff? Do more communities, by doing more community outreach, the state's attorney office? And then it also says, I've always been a Democrat. How do I vote Democrat and Republican?
When you go, that one's easy, you go and punch 55, that's the number, okay? You just hit punch 55. Now, I say that on the rest of the beginning of the question and repeat it on how it was said, on the question.
Okay, so it says, I've always been a Democrat. How do I vote Democrat and Republican?
That's it. The names will be very similar next to each other. And this year, the Republicans are under the Democrats, and the Libertarian or the whoever is under the Republicans. So there's a little space in the, hit the number. My number is 55. I'm gonna keep saying it. Punch 55.
You said repeat the first part of the question?
Yeah.
Okay, it said, what is the state's attorney's budget, and how will it diversify staff by doing more community outreach from the state's attorney's office?
Well, again, we have 1,300 people that are administrative staff. And I don't know what the exact number is right now on it, but it's in the millions. And we were called in by Kim Fox's office on the potential transition. So my team that met with their head and I found it unusual because they must think we could win by being called in. And one of the questions I wanted to know was the breakdown on race, gender, you name it, across the board. And I want to find out because, you know, I'm going to make sure that we recruit people to look like our communities when they go out, and sometimes bring somebody else from the opposite gender or race into something that's needed. So we can start bringing people together instead of tearing them apart.
Someone said, what's your relationship with the judges to accomplish your plan?
I think it's very good. I've had a long-standing, I have an informal law enforcement committee. I meet with former police officers, some current ones, on almost every Saturday. Some former deputy chiefs and deputy chiefs from the suburbs, and judges, retired and current sitting judges. I have breakfast with them virtually every Saturday, and they give me some insights, and all of them guide me on making the right decisions when I become a city.
I guess this was a little bit further back. The going says laws set in place for the crimes that are being committed. So laws are set in place for the crimes that are being committed.
I think that was in response to just this idea of how do you, balance the having to do the job while also having to, recognize the systemic harms that have been committed against us in the legal system.
Well, again, it goes back to, one, you enforce the laws with it. If you
Right.
don't like it, let's all go down the Springfield and change.
Yeah, that's facts.
You know, and I've worked with people in Springfield, many of my state senators, state reps, to bring additional money into the second ward. I've worked on the federal government, trying to get money for our parks to make sure, because I believe our parks should be better utilized. And, of course, the number of, I used to introduce anywhere from 30 to 70 ordinances a meeting. And it takes under our process.
Wait, did you say 30 to 70 a meeting?
I mean,
Oh, man, why you was doing that to them people?
you
You bothering them at that point. That's for real.
You know, and then self-safety and, concerns, and, you know, I should say ordinances, resolutions, and orders.
Okay.
And you can tell, people, commissioners to appear before us.
Right.
And probably by the end, under the 2 or 3 month period, I probably got 99% of the ones I would have introduced today would have been passed in 60 to 90 days.
Wow.
So I have a good record of building a coalition of people in the city council, but I have a better record of building coalitions with our pastors, our faith-based community, and with the police department.
Yeah, that's good. It's gonna take a real collaborative approach. So speaking of that, how do you take that approach, the collaborative approach, to make sure that all voices are heard when it's time to represent all the people? So how does that look? You know what I mean? Because obviously you have different sections of the city. Chicago has 77 communities, so every voice is unique, and everybody is wanting something different from that state's attorney's office. So how do you bring all of these different voices together, you know, and work with them? Obviously, you have some history in doing that as an alderman, you know, but in this particular role, how do you do that?
Well, we have a lot of entities out there. I used to have 4 community meetings, 4 different parts of the world, community meetings. Twice a year.
Oh, twice a year, okay.
I had, well, you know, I used to have ward meetings every Monday.
Right.
Come rain or come shine, whether I was fighting my cancer or not. And sometimes, well, see the BS that we see in the council. You know, first of all, yes, it should be for the citizens for the second one. But somehow the developers or the lobbyists all came in.
Yeah.
And after a while, I noticed that there was a large number, and sometimes my staff and that one of them said we moved out of the city. You know, it was always great to be there until 11 o'clock at night, and we started doing in the afternoon on every Monday.
Well, let's do this before, not to cut you off. What area did the second ward cover?
Started in
Back,
Monday.
yeah, okay.
And then it went up along the lakefront to McCormick Place, Soldier Field. At Jackson, it moved over. It went down into the medical district and Taylorsville and all that, but it went all the parking lots around the United Center, and then down Sacramento.
Oh, you was where the money was at. You had a little money right there.
That's why they wanted it.
Yeah, that's why all the developers was there. That makes sense then. Okay. Yeah.
Mr. Gorin says a lot of times the state's attorney's office they get it wrong and send my people to jail. Just a statement like that.
Yeah, he was.
But someone else said, I love the fact that the state's attorney's office, this is Berkeley, in the communities, however, I think they should all be freestanding. So I guess.
Gotta expound on that a little bit.
Yeah, you gotta explain that a little. I love the fact of this.
That's the interesting beginning of the question.
Sure. If you all can remember, the one that used to be in Austin was on Chicago Avenue in Austin. Now it's in Beale. A lot of people are refusing to go there. The one that's on Maxwell, is utilized a lot. It seems that community members are more apt to go in and get the work, get the help they need if they're freestanding, meaning by themselves, versus in another business.
Oh.
And you want the community to be able to utilize them. So you have to make it convenient for the community.
Oh, okay.
Makes sense.
Okay.
It
Makes
does
sense.
make sense. I know there's 101 different ways to be more accessible. And, I'm just beginning, I mean, this is a big county because Barrington is in this county,
Mm-hmm.
all the way down to Vermont.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it goes far western suburbs. We have 135 suburbs in Cook County.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody says, oh yeah, Chicago. No, and those are all different municipalities.
Mm-hmm.
So, and each one of them has a police department,
Mm-hmm.
and each one of them has a mayor or village president or something else. And, you know, going back to both of the questions, in 2 years back, you know, it's difficult. I plan on convening, almost monthly meetings with the pastors and, various mayors and sections
Okay,
to
yeah.
do what they want.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm also here to, not to go into communities and say, oh, well, this is what we're gonna do, and the heck with that idea, because I wanna listen to what communities have to say. And far too often, and that's why I had so many community meetings every year in different sections.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what, we just didn't put it on the internet. I made sure that if we would have in this section of the board that went all the way this way,
Mm-hmm.
every house was leafleted.
Okay. Yeah.
And we didn't say, oh, by the way, this is Sunday, we have a meeting on Monday,
Right.
because people can't
Yeah.
arrange their schedule.
Yeah.
So we always give them, 10-day numbers at least,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you how long. We're still trying to figure that out as a district council person. Me personally, I go out there like 2 to 3 days in advance, you know. And I know that's short, but at the same time, for whatever reason, we don't like to use our calendar. So it's like, well, if it's there, it's kind of in my face, and I think I can make it in 2 days, you know. So I was gonna ask you about this.
So, but at the same time, you know, it requires, and the districts are big.
Yeah, for sure.
But the populations are different.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which raises to me concern.
Yeah.
And then, so let's say your next meeting is, in 2 weeks. And you're having Joe Blow, Sally Smith, Jamal, here, all coming in as special guests.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know what, so how do you alert people?
Right.
I've been to some of the district
council meetings? Okay.
and, some of them have good turnouts and some of them have 4 or 5.
Right.
So we have to remedy that situation.
Yeah, we're in between that. We have about 10.
Yeah,
I mean, but you know, what are you gonna do? And we do leafletting, so we flyer, like I say, maybe 3 days in advance. We email and we do social media.
Mm-hmm.
So we're still trying to figure out the best balance to get more people out. But at the same time, people are like tired of meetings. Like we be needing to meet, you know?
Yeah.
So that's part of it too, you know? So I mean, I take solace in the fact that we actually have new people each meeting, which is cool.
Right.
You know what I mean? And in that way, we're building up our network so that when we do send out the emails, that people are, you know, kept abreast. If, you know, they in fact would like to be a part of things like that, you know, and everybody doesn't want to be a part of, you know, these conversations, which is okay too. Yeah. So that's enough.
But they should know that it is taking place.
Well, they'll know that exactly. Yeah. So that was another thing I was going to ask. So that gives me a good question to ask you. So with so many people being apathetic to this process, you know, in terms of voting and just kind of being involved civically, and we don't mean just the voting process, we mean just being good community members and neighbors and, you know, coming out and learning what's available to them in community. How do you remedy that issue that we're facing right now? You know what I mean? Because obviously going back to voting, you know, the numbers consistently are dwindling, you know, as the baby boomer generation continue to move along in life. The next generations are not picking up those mantles and, you know, coming out in droves and representing the way that they once did in the baby boomer generation. So how do you start to use this office to try to build, you know, build more activity into these processes, while also trying to reduce the apathy that people actually feel for these elected offices and their communities and just being involved in general?
Well, let me put it another way. How often have the people voted in local school council elections?
You can vote for those? Like, no, I mean, how do you, like, seriously, like, is that a process similar to when we go out and
They're
vote?
all divided. I'm not talking about what they're voting for now, but I'm talking about local school council elections.
Yeah, how do you vote for those?
I have the availability in my, when the elections come up, I have 10 different schools in the district. One starts at 28th and Wabash, right down there, right across from Quinn Chapel. There's a school, primarily for a lot of kids with disabilities. And it goes from there all the way up. I can vote in Jones, Whitney Young, the high school's Crane, Walter Payton, Lane Tech, and Wells High School. And there's 6, and there's 3 other, there's 6 grade school, high schools, and 4 grade schools. I say that I read the issues on each of the schools, who's running, and guess what? When I show up and I'm the last one in some of the schools, 6 people from the community.
Yeah. Look, I'm gonna go first. How do you even know when those are taking place? Because I know Jamae was one, but now that is one thing I rarely hear or see. So I don't even know that. Personally, I didn't know that you can go and be a community member to go vote on these.
And they've got community members, they've got the faculty members, and they have something else on the voting issues. And I make sure I vote every time. And each of the candidates can give a statement.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have, the faculty, I'm not going to read theirs because that's but once in a while, usually we'll get some parents that want to run.
Yeah.
And they have to get a certain amount of signatures too to get on the ballot. We spend an enormous amount of money on those elections. And when I say that, because we use the Chicago Board of Elections judges, you walk into the room, you've got 6 to 10 different judges. Yeah. More than we do at the
polling places. Yeah.
You know, and they get paid the same salary.
Hold on, I'm still lost as to, I have never voted in a local school council election.
Well,
number one.
I'll make sure you do that.
Hey, man, I would. I mean, you know, so, and it makes me think. So you mentioned some powerful schools in the city.
That's been going on for over 30 years, hasn't it? LSC.
Yeah. Well, look, my brother, my twin brother, actually sat on LSC at Spencer, but I didn't realize that it was a voted thing. I thought that it was literally because the lack of activity, you know. Oh yeah, right, probably. But no, because of the lack of activity, I really thought that people just show up, say, I want to be on local school council, and you're just in. Literally, I didn't think that it was a vote taken to put people in. But to your point, you were talking about some of the more powerful schools. I can imagine why people would want to sit on those boards to be a controlling factor, voicing Jones and Young and Tech.
A lot of them are African American, but when I first ran for alderman, I ran because the damn educational system wasn't doing what they should have done. I read in the Tribune about a year before I decided to run. Under the fold, 6 out of every 100 African American kids go to college and graduate. And those numbers were too low. I said, I'm about half a block away from Whitney Young. I get up to my curb. I look down the other way. 10-minute walk away, Jackson turn. Crane High School.
Mm-hmm.
And I voted in Crane too.
Mm.
Crane didn't have, enough people. In fact, when I walked in to vote, and there was only 3 or 4 people that voted. One of the administrators said, cause I told all my schools, Bob, you wanna serve on this, on the board here, for the LSC. And at that time, we could not serve on the board, but I made sure we found people that could serve on the board. And at the time, I mean, they choose the principal.
Right.
They
Right.
vote
Right.
on the budget.
Right.
They are the voice.
Yep.
You know, and now we're gonna have 23 people on a school board.
Right.
And you think they're gonna be friendly?
And listen, that's gonna be
Right now in the city.
23 people on any board is crazy.
It's true. Even if you had 50 in the city council.
Man.
Yeah.
So that makes me think. So I will from this point forward look forward to voting into the I didn't know that.
You live in the ward, right?
What?
You only have to live in the ward where the
No,
school is, right?
it's I'm not anywhere near Lane Tech, which is up on what?
Right.
Addison and Western.
Yeah, Addison West. Yep.
And I'm at Jackson and Ashland, when it used to be considered the West Side, and now it's the West Loop.
Is it?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. So and somehow they moved it in and all that.
Oh yeah. Well, they did that when the mother of my child lived. It was Humble Park at one point, but now where they at Maplewood and Hurst is now West Town.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
They like to change names around.
Oh yeah, and push the zip code boundaries once they start building up. Well, the good thing is, their home is worth $1 million now, so that's pretty cool. A lot of equity.
So.
We got a couple
As long as
questions.
you can pay the tax.
Well, they can pay the tax. The house paid off. Grandma home, so they've been paid off.
Yeah.
All right, so we got a couple questions for you. So the question was, what is your plan to release all of those who the system has already failed?
Well, as I started off, I have represented those who've been wrongfully convicted. I have fought to bring jobs to our community. When I was in Albany. And 8,000 jobs is no small feat. And to make sure that they harvest from our board. I see it all the time. And, whether you're on the west side or whether you're traveling through, you see the problem. Simple things can help people out. I have to say, there was once, I got 500 jobs at Rush, and we split 250 with 27 board and 250 in mine. And I'm in sure. One day, we're going over the jobs with the director, and both the other aldermen was there and myself. And I noticed a pattern that after a certain number of weeks, they were laid off. We spent a lot of time training, paying them good wages, and all of a sudden they were laid off. I asked the administrator, who was a former alderman from the south side, I said, what's happening? And he said, well, we got them all off. Why? Because then they can collect unemployment. I said, wait a minute. And the other alderman was there and didn't understand what I was saying. We built up people to have good paying jobs.
Right.
And now we lay them off, and so they can collect unemployment. If you're not on top of these guys, that's what happens. And you know what? There's been many a time when I was the alderman that I had somebody sitting on my front porch, and when I got home, and somebody that was selling drugs out in the corner said, alderman, I have 2 kids, I have 3 kids. If I keep doing what I'm going to do, I'm going to land in jail. And you need to find me a job. I had one of those guys call me about 5 weeks ago, who still has a job that he found him over 10 years.
Right.
And he said, I want to thank you. What can I do for your campaign? I said, just spread the word.
Yeah.
Spread the word.
Right. So he was somebody that was actually selling drugs, you were saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And had a spotty record.
Yeah. So to that, do you think? Let's look at that then. What do you think is the largest? I should say the most pressing issue facing communities of color as it relates to the reasons why they end up going to prison? We talked a little bit about education. Do you think it's that? We just talked about economics. Do you think it's that? Do you think it's the household? Is it parenting? What is it? And then, because obviously those issues may be a lot different than what they are currently, because this generation of criminality seems to be getting younger, and and it almost seems like there isn't a reason behind it, almost because of with social media and the proliferation of it, seems like that may be more spurring it. So, what do you think it is, especially for those, again, from communities of color that are engaged in criminality?
Well, I think it summed it up. It was all of that. There's not one single factor: education, lack of jobs, the movement out, and lack of parental structure.
Yeah. You give me one though. I know him, but what do you say? What would you think would be the top one? And then how do you address that with this office?
Well, for the younger ones, education. But at the same time, we need parents watching them or guardians. And we can't be having a system where the parents are not held accountable either.
Okay.
You can't tell me at 2:30 at night, when a 12 or 13-year-old is out, and what did the parents say? What were they doing at that hour? Especially when they're miles from home. Look, we all grew up in an age, and we wanted to get away from the home, and we may have caused a little bit of trouble. And you know what? When I was growing up, if you did, by the time if you did it on the next block, by the time you got home, your parents knew, and my butt would have been sore. So
yeah, buddy.
But it's all these factors. I wish I could say yes, just one, but the truth of the matter is not. And we have to, again, I go back to the lack of jobs, lack of opportunity, and what we see is a society that convinces people that the doors are not open to them.
That's a good one. That's a good point right there. And so how do you use the office to help with that?
My wife gave she was with me today at one of the churches, and we were at a mega church, and there was probably about 1,200 people there today. And she said, she looked at how what I did as alderman in terms of dealing with all those issues. And she said it to the pastor later on after the service. And, we have to do better. Somebody has to fight for our community. And I don't see that happening with most of our elected officials today. Whether it's in the state attorney's office, even, we could say, oh yeah, it's all this, and this. Well, where's the opportunity? Somebody can look at my record, and I think if you want to bring down crime, we have the solutions. We did that in areas. If you want to make sure our kids got a better education, we did that to make sure. We had programs. We got them in programs. We had scouting on some of it. The base, I was at Roseland today, as I said earlier in this broadcast, and I'm driving past the baseball field, and I bet I said it not once but twice, I made the Willie Mays catch, and everybody cheered me on, and the Roseland Baseball Hall of Fame, where he's running, looking over, the ball's coming, he steps up on the wall, but I crashed and I fell down on my foot, but I got back up, threw the ball all the way into home plate, and the guy was out. So, those are certain organized efforts you need to bring. I'm not saying, and how we teach kids. Reverend Jackson endorsed, and I'm proud of that endorsement. But Push has a program that they give out cards to all the parents that, and it's about 6 points on it. One, you should know who your son and your daughter's teachers are.
Mm-hmm.
Two, you should have a cell number for them. Three, you should make sure your kids are studying a couple hours a day. And you should be there with them. And there's a whole 3 or 4 other items on the card. And I think if people follow those rules, and the parents follow their own rules, the kids follow theirs that are on those cards, we have a better society.
Mm-hmm. I just pulled up an article done about you in WBEZ, and it's talking about a couple of your top priorities. Talk to me a little bit about human trafficking, because the number of missing Black women is an issue that no one wants to confront. And obviously, we're in this space, so I'm only pointing out that Black women are missing, but there are tons of missing children, individuals in general, but the Black women in general don't get the type of national attention or even local attention sometimes in other cases get. What are your plans to confront that?
Well, prior to the pandemic, there were between 15 and 25,000 acts of prostitution in the city of Chicago a day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I raised the issue on the city council floor, holding hearings on human trafficking. I had one other alderman, she joined me, and we sent it to 2 different committees. So it was a larger turnout of all of them. We had some survivors, we had the safety attorney's office, we had federal government there, we had a couple other people on our panel. And at the end of the hearing, which lasted about 3 hours, Alderman came up with me and said, I didn't know that.
Right.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, open your eyes.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
Now, that was then. Just recently in May, I put together and moderated a seminar for lawyers on human trafficking and what's happening here. Almost the same type of panel. We had a state rep on it who's introduced 6 statutes in the last General Assembly that haven't gotten passed to really tighten up the rules. We had the chief judge of the federal court, who wrote many of these anti-human trafficking statutes in the 90s. I think it's almost a simplistic term, but it bothers me that we have so many Black women missing that we can't account for, and they're sucked up into this human trafficking. The Baby Tamia case that I had when I was a lawyer, it was all about human trafficking of Black and brown babies. We got that baby back in 6 months, but it was small little ads. You want to give us your baby? Call us 1-800 number.
Oh, wow.
And it was in the Sun-Times Tribune here, in Kansas, in Georgia, Atlanta. But the ads, instead of going citywide, targeted certain areas. And the Baby Tamia case was all about that. And the baby was snatched up in Nevada. I don't know, I keep saying in Nevada, but I said Utah. It was into Utah. We got the baby back, but nobody knows what happened to all the other kids in that. We came back at Bishop Tryer's church on Commercial 11 6th Street. We had the governor there sign an act that changed all the laws in Illinois, which then impacted the interstate commerce, which changed all those same type of laws across the country. I'm going to fight against human trafficking. I'm going to try to get down to the bottom of where some of these, what happened to these women, and a lot of it now is on here.
Yeah, for sure.
And there was a play, probably in 2015 or 16, that was out in one of the small theaters. It was all about human trafficking.
Hmm.
and how kids get sucked up into it because whoever's on the other end as they play their game,
Hmm.
it happens. You know, I just settled, I was part of a team at my, of the law firm, that we just settled a case with CPS where a teacher, groomed, gave them gifts, and they were all family related members, cousins, two brothers and a cousin, Hispanic, and, he was one of them. And, we find in our public school system last year alone, there were almost 450, sexual misconduct cases. There was, 212 active as of right now.
Damn,
And, you know, our schools are supposed to be safe
for sure.
places where kids should be learning. And this is what's happening. You know, we have a failure. And I said it was the same day that the new board was being sworn in. But of course, they're not going to comment on it because that was, they won't show it on the media. But I said maybe the new board ought to be looking at what's happening out there.
Yeah,
And it's huge.
respectfully.
Huge.
A couple comments. Say the people will need an open door policy if you want their vote, their win. If you want to win the vote, so so some of the folks listening said they're gonna need an open door policy. And what's that gonna look like?
Well, what they do want me in here after an election. And I hate that. I think going to the community,
Right.
I mean, such as the council, going to the school, and I'm not there to preach. I'm there to listen and implement the concerns of people of our community. There's nothing else to say. I mean, it will be an open door, but you can't say, hey, Bob, my cousin was arrested and
Right.
blah, blah, blah. We don't want to have a Jesse Smollett case.
Yeah. That's not the proper way to use it.
Right.
After that. The other thing is big issue. Guns, you know, all of the guns that are on the streets. What are your thoughts about that? What are your plans to try to help remedy that?
Well, same thing. If you caught doing a crime with a gun, you know, you're in charge, you're reporting it. But secondly, something like, even if you illegally have I'm really driving here, so bear with me, everybody listen. But if you have now I got my own, I'm trying it down. A machine gun.
Yeah.
Is a non-detainable offense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know machine guns are only there to cause great bodily harm.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, the legislature ought to look at making that a detainable offense. But a lot of the problem is when we talk about guns, drugs, and human trafficking, don't come out of nowhere.
Right.
And they're on the dark side of the web.
Right.
And they're bought and sold there.
Yeah.
With what? The Bitcoin.
The Bitcoin, yeah.
And we have to put a unit together to work with the various law enforcement agencies to stop that, and the state attorney ought to be a part of that. Almost daily, the superintendent of the federal government and some state and federal other local agencies meet on gun crimes that have happened. And I think the state's attorney's office must be a part of that.
Yeah. That's a good point. Have you ever jumped on the dark web yourself?
No, but I'm not sure if I want to. That probably start bugging me, man. You know how they can track everything on you.
You just need a VPN and an onion router.
Somebody does know how to do it. So,
Man, I'm a little younger, man. I mean, you know, you gotta be in the mix. We gotta know. You know.
You can show me later on what you do.
Oh man. What did you say, Mr. Gore? Did he say Dr. Rudis will be higher prosecutor if he wins or gets their vote? Me, prosecutor, no, I'm a psychologist. Ooh, I don't deal with the law stuff. Ooh, Look,
Yeah, but you see, I think, sometimes, especially as an alderman, at least during my ward night, I thought I was a psychiatrist, psychologist.
Yeah, you have to be.
The whole bit, I would, because people would come in, not just on community-related problems, or problems that they're having, but how to solve things in the household, and how to do things. And
Man,
I try to refer them to the experts.
yeah.
One thing that I think Ron really screwed up with was when he closed all the mental health things.
Yeah,
And I thought over and over. I mean, the budget since I left the city council almost 10 years ago went from a little bit over 8 billion, that in those 9 years to over 16 billion. And
100% increase.
to open up a mental health clinic is about $2 million a year, and we've had 6 of them. You mean to tell me we could not find $12 million in our budget to open up those clinics that are so essential to help our people in our community?
I think that's what we go back to. So one of my gripes with elected, I sit and not look at it for what it is. I am, and I'd like to say, so the office that I occupy is, very lowly, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to really do this work. We're more, we're still organizers, if you will. We're still community engagement specialists. We're still trying to, yes, inside people get in, Dr. Is okay. We're still trying to, we're still trying to build coalitions and collaborate, to get people to come to our meetings, because ultimately, as a district council, we're essentially just elected to elevate the voice of our community. We can't really do a whole lot, if there's lapses in communication between our department and the community, that's where we come in at. Public safety concerns, they can levy them to us. Same thing with police accountability, and we can be, mediators in whatever the conflict, or help facilitate them for the information they need in order to rectify the situation. But as an older person, you're in the steward of 55,000 people, first and foremost. So there's a lot of different people. But not only that, you have to balance budget, you have to write policy, you have to be strategic, you have to be a leader of people and staff and development, and be professional, and so many other different buckets. And the people that are being elected fail at nearly all of those things, especially balancing the budget. So I'm always trying to figure out, like, how is it that I'm the only one that can see that these people don't know what the hell they're doing up there, and why are they in these positions? That to me, that's why our city is faltering.
And as you say that, I've listened to many of the people running for school board, the 10 seats that are available. None of them know what you just talked about, especially on the financial.
Come on,
man. We
man.
don't have anybody that can close the gap that we have. And that budget keeps right on going up and up and up.
Right.
And we need people that understand. 2 nights ago, somebody had a zoning issue with their alderman and stopped me on the street. And I said, well, one of the biggest problems that we should have had, when aldermen come in, they need to take a course on urban planning, on zoning, that affects everybody. And what the economic impact is of zoning, and how that guides your own community.
That's a good point.
So, and the other problem is the wards especially are not compact and contiguous. I mean, they're spread out all over.
Yeah, right. And some of them can touch 5, 6 different communities, 7 communities,
Well, I had 12.
12 communities. Crazy. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous, and that map can be carved out a lot better. I mean, there's only 5 West Side wards right there.
Well, as I said, when we voted way back when, we fell one, I'll tell you why we fell one vote short. We had the vote, but they were compact, contiguous, and the populations in each one of them, we had communities of interest, and virtually 2 communities in every ward. It worked out.
Right.
And the $20-30 million for litigate this, and I gotta get some things done in my community I can't vote for, well, that means the mayor reached out.
Yeah.
You know what I've done?
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah, oh
said-
yeah, oh yeah,
I said to him,
oh yeah.
you know what, if the people in your ward support you, you shouldn't be worried about what they're doing. Just go forward and vote. But, you know, we fell one vote short there, putting it to the people to vote on the ward maps.
Damn, man.
It's always special interest.
That's all it is. And going back to the ward night, when I decided that I knew there were too many lobbyists coming in, on the intake sheet, I had a box that said, "Are you a lobbyist?" And I started off the discussion, and we've had a lot of people always come in. And I'd say to the people that were waiting, well, everybody, I want to hear all your concerns. I've asked some of the folks to write it down, but I know I'm always questioned about why you have a checked off box for the lobbyists. And it's because lobbyists control City Hall, and we have to realize. And you know, and they control all of it. So government, they control half the time. These ordinances that we see coming through that sound the glorification of the people are written by the special interests, the lobbyists, and that's what happens down there.
You know what? So I'm never an opponent of situations like that, you know, lobbyists. I just wish that we understood the game better and was able to go get our own lobbyists to work on our behalf. The one thing that I say about our community and its relationship with politics is that we don't understand the numbers game of it, meaning how many people come out is that's where the eyes get placed on because they know that they can count on you for those votes.
Right.
So when we say we don't want to be involved, it's like, well, okay, but you are making sure that you're not going to be represented. So, you know, it's a catch-22.
No.
You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. You get nothing if you don't do it.
Absolutely.
But you're going to have to give your energy and time to do it to see if actually something will happen. But then to the other piece, when we're talking about lobbyists, you know, there aren't enough lobbyists of color that's going to go down there and argue on our behalf, as well as we're not putting our money where our mouth is. You know, I always say, because people talk a lot about Obama, and he didn't do anything to change the community.
There are a lot of lobbyists of color, but they too are bought off.
Okay.
By you know, when you're waving $10,000 a month to do something for an entity, and you sign the contract for a year or 2 years, and you get a couple of those, you know, everybody said, "Oh God, you want to become a lobbyist." I think the whole thing stinks. I would not want to be a lobbyist because I want to.
Because you got to sell yourself. You got to sell yourself. Yeah. Whoever the highest bidder is.
So yeah,
you got to work for them. Yeah,
I want to represent the people, make sure their interests. And if I have to fight whomever occupies City Hall, the state government, federal government, I will.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. The last thing I was just gonna say about that is that when it comes to the money piece, if we could put our resource together to fuel our lobbyists and or our politicians, then I feel like we could also get some other things done. That's the other place where I feel like we don't show up enough. In the example I was gonna give about Obama, a lot of folks were saying that he didn't do anything for us. And he looked mostly at the LGBTQ group. And I always retort, and I'm like, well, how many of us collectively put our bag of money together and pushed it in front of us and said, this is our agenda? Because those other groups do. We can talk about special interest groups all we want, but we also got to realize that they're the ones that are putting their money where their mouth is. And until Black people realize that, come together collectively, get our plan together, and put that bag of money in front of the lobbyists and or the politicians, yeah, I mean, we're going to continue to get what we're going to get.
That's why I gave back development money. Because I view it as legalized bribery. And, you know, I used to have some people come in that were elected from other offices, statewide, countywide, and I thought, oh, they're here to talk about policy. No, they had a client in trouble on what they needed their client to do in the Central North.
Mm.
I mean, let's face it, and big money is controlling everything.
Nah, that's for sure.
And
That's for sure.
we all have to fight that, to the best of our abilities. Sometimes, the mother who has 2 or 3 kids, who tries to work a full-time job, but then has to pick up their kids from school, make sure they're safe, get them to some program, get them to some sporting event, you know what? God bless them, because it takes so much effort
Yeah, it does.
on what to do.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
We about to round up and wrap up.
I know my wife is all of a sudden texting me, so if anybody
Yeah.
was on the phone,
No.
what time are you coming home for dinner?
Yeah, I know. Everybody's starting to chime in. We at that top of that hour. And we typically go around and ask a few people, what their thoughts and concerns and what they like to say in closing. So how about you, Tiny? I haven't heard from you. How about you, Miss Houston? Anything in conclusion?
Oh, hey, glad to hear from you, Mr. Fiore. I can't get the name right, but
Here's how to remember it. Are you ready or fear ready?
Fioretti.
Yeah.
Okay, because it seems that with the politicking area and the law department you're dealing in, it appears that everyone is working individually instead of cooperatively, and there's a lack of communication in that staff among each others. So what can you do to really strengthen their communication so they'll know the right hand or know what the left hand is doing so they won't keep bumping heads?
Well, I think I said, I'm gonna try to make the community, informed in every which way. We do have community people out there, in virtually all parts of the city and the county. The question is how I can be effective to make sure I'm meeting with, community groups here, like the Northwest Austin Council, on a regular basis. Come out to the districts, to the police boards. It's fun campaigning, let me tell you, you meet so many different people. And today I was at 3 different churches and community events down in Roseland, or excuse me, that was in West Pullman. And walked into a couple of stores and things. But the hard work begins on the day I'm elected. And this may be and I told my wife the other night, and tonight she would have probably been here, and chimed in on some of the things too, sometimes she does. But she was home trying to make sure that we're safe and sound as we go into the last few days. But I said to her, once I'm safe as her, there may be times when we're not gonna see each other for a while, because I have to be out in the community. And my wife's a strong advocate for economic development and affordable housing, and she occupies a big role in this state on what she does. And I'm proud of what she does, but it's helpful when we can bring that in the state. And I plan on doing that, but again, I plan on being elected, and we got a lot to do together. And I'm gonna be in our community.
All right, sir. What you got to say, Kiana, in conclusion?
I don't have anything to add, but I would like to thank him for coming out today and allowing us to talk to him. But I don't have anything to add because I really don't live there. I'm pretty sure everybody else who has something to add, I'm just going to yield the floor to them.
All right, we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Tiny, I know you a big Bob Fioretti guy. Go ahead and chime in.
Yeah, okay. Now, Uh, I'm gonna vote for you, Feel Ready, anyway, because I don't like that Lady Burke. But I like to ask you, do you believe Trump won in 2020?
Well, my view is, right now, that's long time history, because if we overturned everything today, what would happen with everything we did? So and I'm gonna avoid the question for once. But let me tell you, I've walked into polling places here in this city, and I've seen judges fill out, with nobody else in the room, calling off names, filling out ballots, and putting it in. I've seen, one guy who I once met up with, and on the west side, he told me flat out, he voted 7 times in an election, one election. I've seen, putting a ballot through the machine 3 times on phony names. So I'm not saying that they were actual candidates, but they registered according to it. On the 4th time, because everybody said, oh, this is good, and somebody put it through the 4th time, some of the names started registering for the next person, the other person. They put it through 3 times again, and on the 8th time, it voted 2 or 3 different people, or 2 or 3 fake names for the other thing. You know, we have to be careful on voter integrity wherever we are, and we got to maintain it. The state attorney used to have 400 state attorneys out on the streets in the past. Now we have none. You can call the state attorney's office and the U.S. Department of Justice, and really you're waiting till kingdom come for somebody to come out.
Okay, now, like I say, I'm gonna vote for you anyway. I just want to know how you feel about Trump.
Well, you know, again, I'm gonna vote policy. I know there's a movement out here, and I've seen some signs that show Harris theoretic that are being passed in parts of our community, especially on the south side. I saw them just recently, and I saw somebody asked me about it, and I think when you get in the ballot box, you know, I want fiscal conservativeness, but I want to help the people. I want family values. I want people that can understand what the Constitution is about, and that's how I feel. And do I think we may be the next president?
You can ask me, Batani, how I feel about Trump. I'll tell you in a minute.
Okay.
I'll tell you one thing.
Yeah.
If you think that for 1 minute he got cheated out of and people stacked the ballots against him, that would be not true, because number one, he called it before he even got it to the situation. He said, if the Democrats are gonna scam against me, I know they are. But the Democrats, he didn't say that when he won the first time. When it went into the second election, he called it 6 to 8 months before, as if he was going to use that as a reason for him to start whining like he always does. So for me, he can kiss my ass. That's all I can tell you. What we got on that? That's it.
Amen. Amen.
We did see Alma was on. She said she was glad to see you on, Mr. Fioretti. So that's a good thing. You know, folks definitely are gravitating towards you. I think, like I said, the unfortunate is that we've had a state's attorney office that was very left leaning. You know, folks have asked me, was I?
Prosecutor ought to be independent, first and foremost. And if we can find ways to elect somebody to that office without saying they're a Democrat or Republican, I think that's what we need. Because we should view the system in terms of how we're going to affect policy.
Right. Well, so technically, I mean, you depend on what side of the court you're on. You're all supposed to be independent anyway. There shouldn't be a preference for, true. You know.
Absolutely.
It's just a fact. It's the case. It's the fact. And you mediate and you make a decision.
And you have to be an attorney to take this position.
We have you can achieve that.
Right.
But again, it goes back to my view, we understand the presumption of innocence.
Right.
The rule of law, what it means to be fair, ethical, and all of the individuals in their respective laws.
Yeah. So, you know what, my last question to you would be, how long have you been practicing?
1978.
1978.
A long time.
Yeah, buddy. Okay. So for me, all right,
But I've seen it all, you know.
Mm.
And as a civil rights attorney, you really see it all.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, you're a civil, that's your specialty, civil rights? Okay. Okay.
You know Jim Bauer? Bauer?
I know the name.
Yeah, it's Jim, the guy that's got the oldest house in Austin, right here on Central.
On Central?
Yeah, it burned down a couple.
He has the
yeah,
antique
Yeah,
spot
he's a
over there on
state attorney. I mean, he's a civil rights attorney.
Right, yes.
You know Jack
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Yeah, he works with Jack Kennedy.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so on 11/11, which is Veterans Day, that's a Monday, our district council, 15th district council, is gonna hold our first annual appreciation dinner, essentially our way of giving back to our community that have showed up for our district council meeting. You know, during our meetings, we also highlight officers that have go above and beyond. Aptly, we give them a award called the Above and Beyond. And for folks in our community that have been involved in public safety and police accountability, we give them the Legacy Honors Award. And so we'll have our awardees and officers and, you know, everybody else that has been involved in our meetings to come out. And it's just our way of just spending time with y'all. So that's gonna be at the AAA BNA, the La Sankofa headquarters. That is 57. Check this here. Give me a second. I want to say it's 58. I could be. Let me see. Where's
gotta be 58, right? Oh, excuse me.
Where is it at? I want to say 5820.
But
West
yeah,
Chicago.
let me just go ahead and say, you know, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. We had an enjoyable conversation. We appreciate
Thank you.
candidate Bob Fiore.
Oh yeah, it's 58.
For coming out and giving us all this enlightenment on what he wants to do and how he can make it happen. And
Yes,
I want to
sir.
thank you personally, and we got to do more of these things.
Absolutely.
Yep. So the gratitude dinner is 11/11. That's Veterans Day at 6 p.m. We'll be at St. Cola Cultural Arts Center, 5820 West Chicago Avenue. You know, anybody in the 15th district welcome to come. Anybody that's come to our meetings are welcome to come. So.
Oh, and also, we will have the first annual Northwest Austin Council Book Fair, where if you've written a book, know someone that's written a book, or like to talk about books and listen to those that have written books, it will be November the 9th from 1 to 4 o'clock here at Northwest Austin Council, 5730 West Division. And Congressman Davis will be here because he has many people that he knows of that have written books in the city of Chicago and the adjoining suburbs. So, hey, come on out and share your wares and talk about what you've written about to people.
Yes, sir. All right, y'all. So y'all know how we do on Sundays between the hours of 6 and 8. We bring you to Northwest Austin Council. You know, West Side folks talking West Side things. Sometimes we go a little bit outside of that. Like we had today, candidate for state rep, Bob Fioretti, state's attorney. State's attorney, candidate for state's attorney, Bob Fioretti. You know, because we had to talk to him and see where he stands on some things. We'd like to see him in office, though. I voted for him. Tiny voted for him. You should as well. That said, you know, there's various ways to interact with the show: the Facebook, the YouTube, or the Zoom. Whichever you choose is up to you. If you're on the Facebook or the YouTube, you just type your comment. We can see it as we've been looking at ours and Mr. Goins. Otherwise, if you're on the Zoom, you just come right off mute and you're right in the show. Speak your speech, keep it discreet. You know, if it's disrespectful, God to meet you or boot you. But otherwise, listen, I always like to say in closing, we got open seats at the table. We're just trying to welcome y'all along home. Thank y'all for allowing us to welcome you to Northwest Austin Council. Y'all have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
God bless everybody.